The 49ers versus Vikings is fastly approaching. And it's interesting to get into the numbers and see how each of these teams took care of business in week one, where they sit, what advantages that they showed that they had over their opponents, and how they compare and contrast to what each has done so far through 1 week of the regular season. It's going to be a fun conversation. I hope you guys will all stay and enjoy this episode of 49ers Cutback.
From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Really excited you could join me to talk 49ers versus Vikings. It's always a interesting matchup when you play a team from the north, especially a team you haven't defeated in 32 years. That's right. That's what the 49ers are trying to overcome in this game. There's lots of things you can explain when it comes to football, but why the 49ers have not been able to go to Minnesota and get a victory in 32 years is not one of those that's easy to explain. Vikings, of course, consistently put out good football teams. That definitely helps. And it's no different right now. The Minnesota Vikings had a great showing in week one versus the New York Football Giants. They played well on offense. They played well on defense. And now the 49ers have the deck stacked against them. They're traveling on a short week against a good Minnesota Vikings team with a very good coaching staff and also a quarterback that was just on your team last year and familiar with what you do. It's going to look similar, a lot of things, when it comes to the offenses for each team. Kevin O'Connell runs a offense that's kind of based off Sean McVay, which is kind of based off Kyle Shanahan. So you kind of get a feel for what each team tries to do. But O'Connell is a very good coach. He's going to put the Vikings offense in great situations to be successful. And they're going to try to get the ball to Justin Jefferson, and they're going to use a really good run game with Aaron Jones. For the 49ers, moving the football on the Minnesota Vikings is something they've got to try to accomplish this season. Last year, it didn't go so well. 49ers caught themselves in the midst of a 3-game losing streak, and the Vikings were the middle of that. They dispatched the 49ers 22-17 in Minnesota, week 7 of 2023. Now, the 49ers didn't have Deebo Samuel. They didn't have Trent Williams. But there's wholesale changes for both of these rosters from last season. So what I want to do in this episode, and I love doing this, and I know it's not going to give a complete picture, and there's definitely some nuance to this that could make things sway a little bit. Opponent you played, situationally, what the score looked like at certain times. But what it does is just kind of give an overview of what the numbers look like and where each team ranks after week one. Of course, as the season progresses, you get even more information by the numbers and the details of how they attack and how they approach attacking opposing offenses and defenses. But we'll get a small look on this one. And so we're gonna have a fun conversation. I'm gonna talk offense, defense, and special teams in this one, and we're gonna live by the numbers, and it's gonna be a fun one. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, it's 49ers Cutback on Believe, which is available on all audio platforms. Please give it a 5-star rating. And if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. You think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. So it's always an interesting game when you get the 49ers and Vikings. And last year, coming down to the wire, you look at some certain situations that definitely could have changed some things. But when you're looking at how these teams go about doing things, it's not that much different when you look at week one. Now, both of these teams are 1-0. 49ers dispatching the New York Jets, the Vikings dispatching the New York Giants. The 49ers were at home, though, taking on the Jets, while the Vikings made the trip to New York to play the Giants and won in a hostile environment in week 1. So 49ers got to rest. They did get to wait till Monday to play, so now they have a little bit of a rest deficiency when it comes to playing the Vikings. It's going to be nothing new for the 49ers this season. They're going to have a lot of times where the team that they're playing has more rest than them. It can't be an excuse. You've got to make sure you play well and you overcome every obstacle that comes your way. So the 49ers won't get to just rest on the fact that they won last week. You have to win this week as well. And the Vikings are going to put up a big fight. They're a good football team, and they executed at a high level. When you go through these numbers, you're going to see just how well they played against the Giants. And it's easy to say, well, that's the Giants, and you can't take them seriously. But the truth is, this was a big win for Minnesota. They won by 22 points. That's a successful victory. And when you beat an NFL team and you dispatch of them by 22 points, you're a good football team. And all the numbers are going to back it up. So let's start getting into some of these numbers. You see the records there, 1-0. And then you look at DVOA. And so DVOA is a great metric. I love looking at it. And it helps you kind of get an idea of the overview of who these guys are. And so we're going to take a look at the total DVOA here, and that's really going to help kind of give an illustration of how each team is operating, on offense and on defense, but special teams as well, a complete overview of the football team. So for those of you who don't know what DVOA is, and I want to make sure everyone understands it, it's essentially defense adjusted value over average. It measures a team's success on each play against the league average. This success is then adjusted for the strength of each opponent, giving you a percentage. So it's basically a more accurate way of depicting how good you're playing, and that's why I wanted to put it in here, is put DVOA in here so everyone could understand. And coming out of week 1, the Minnesota Vikings are the second best team in DVOA in the entire NFL. That means they played efficient football. They played good football in their game versus the Giants. Number 2, it's good. And I think the other numbers that we go through are going to illustrate and back this claim up. So the Vikings right now coming out of week 1, just like Nick Bosa said, they're a good football team, and they played really well last week. You're only as good as your last game. So right now, the Vikings got to be taken extremely seriously on how good they have been playing. Their DVOA, second best in the NFL. The 49ers are sitting at 5th. So you got 2 top 5s coming out of week 1 as far as DVOA in the league. And that's important. That means these two teams are playing the best right now, are two of the top 5 in the entire league. That's where you want to start. Now let's look at the points per game for these football teams. San Francisco 49ers averaged 32 points, of course, getting 32 points on a really good Jets defense. And I think that when you look at how the 49ers did it, they were really able to execute at a high level in the run game and also sprinkling in some Brock Purdy good passes, letting his playmakers make plays. And then when you look at what Sam Darnold was able to do, he also was making plays. But the key is both of these teams were scoring points. Anytime you're 28, close to 30, like the Vikings and the Niners, that means your offense was efficient and effective, and you're giving yourself a really good chance to win. If you scored 22 plus points, you have a better chance of winning than most. So you can see both teams can put the ball in the end zone. Now, of course, the Vikings did have a interception return for a touchdown, so that helps big time. But still, look at the 28 points. It's still pretty good. And, Van Ginkel did a very good job getting into the end zone for the touchdown. That was a great play, catching the screen pass. Daniel Jones, big mistake. But you see both offenses can move the football and score. And here's showing you how much they can move the football. The San Francisco 49ers went over 400 yards versus a very, very good Jets defense. And the Minnesota Vikings did good moving the football, 312 yards against the New York Giants, whose defensive line is very good. And the Vikings had a lot of success on the ground. We'll be talking about the rushing attack here in a second. But, you see the overall overview of how these teams are moving. Offense was on the field a lot for the 49ers. Over 70 plays of offense for the San Francisco 49ers. Dominated the clock, dominated time of possession. Overall, it was a great performance. And then the Vikings, they got it done. They had a nice balance of run to pass, and they executed at a high level. Now, we're talking about the run game. Jordan Mason rushed for 147 of the 49ers' 180 yards on the ground. Brock Purdy chipped in. Deebo Samuel chipped in with 23 yards. It was pretty much Jordan Mason taking the bull by the horns and filling in for Christian McCaffrey and running down the throats of the New York Jets. Fantastic in that game. So the 49ers rushed for over 5 yards per carry, and that's going to be one of the main focuses for the Minnesota Vikings in this game, is going to be limiting the effectiveness of the 49ers run game. We got Christian McCaffrey. He's up in the air. He says he wants to play. We don't know if he's going to play in this game. What we do know is that Christian McCaffrey's good, and he's great, and the 49ers need him, but they've got a decent backup too in Jordan Mason, and Jordan Mason can still be very good for the 49ers, and this could make an interesting matchup for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, when you look at the Vikings, their run game was really effective. Aaron Jones on the ground, 98 yards. He looked really good. He looked fast. The vision's there, the one cut and go. He's perfect for this offense. He was perfect for the Green Bay offense. He's perfect for Kevin O'Connell's offense, and he does a really good job, and he's very effective. So I think that the run games are going to be very important in this matchup, and I think the San Francisco 49ers need to make sure they have the ability to consistently get yards on the ground. And I think that Minnesota, if they can establish a run game, they could have, an opportunity against the 49ers. And we'll be talking about 49ers and Vikings rush defense later on. Right now, we're focused on the offense, but we're going to get there. But when you look at these teams, they both can get it done on the ground. And, this is going to be a fun matchup. You want to make a team one-dimensional. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to make a team one-dimensional when they can run the ball the way that both of these teams did in week one. Something's got to give because both, we'll get to it, but both teams were really good as far as run defense last week. Now, when you look at the passing attacks, you've got the San Francisco 49ers throwing for 221 yards on the day, and you've got the Vikings throwing for 201. Efficient. You go over 200 yards. You want to get to 250. So the balance in the NFL right now and how you have the most dominant game is you get your passing offense to 250 yards per game, and you get your rushing offense to 150, 400 yards of offense. But splitting it there is kind of the most dominant game you can get as far as run to pass, occupying the clock, and really having the most efficient game. You look at both these teams, they're over 200 yards through the air. Both of them had success on the ground. So there's a little bit left there, a little more meat on the bone, a little bit more they could do dynamically to make plays, but really efficient and really balanced. Both good attacks, led by quarterbacks that spent the same time in a room last year together as far as the 49ers quarterback room. And, that's one of the things you look at. Sam Darnold's familiarity with the 49ers defense, it's going to be on display. So let's talk about Sam Darnold, and let's talk about, what you're going to get from Brock Purdy. So in the first matchup, Brock Purdy completion percentage was at 65.5%. Sam Darnold was cooking. Sam Darnold, 79.2 completion percentage in the week one matchup against the Giants. That is fantastic. I mean, really, really good. Nearly 80% completion percentage for Sam Darnold. That's on point. And so you see that Darnold, when he has time and he has open receivers, he can be very effective. The one thing that was nice to see from Darnold is how good he was within the pocket last week against the Giants. He looked comfortable. He looked calm. Even when he was getting some pressure, he maneuvered pretty well, protected the football, extended plays. It scrambled when he had to, got down with the slide, protected himself. It was effective and efficient quarterback play. It's very reminiscent of what you get from Brock Purdy, where you're willing to take chances at times, but for the most part, let's protect the football. Let's make sure that we keep our team in the best place to be successful. Darnold did a good job. So Darnold, 79.2, tremendous completion percentage. Brock, 65, a little bit low for Brock in his week one, but still very effective. You look at total yards, Brock Purdy had 231 yards through the air, while Sam Darnold had 208. Of course, if you look at total yards, right, they take yards off for sacks and other things. So that's why you see the numbers there are different from their totals. Now, when you look at touchdowns, Brock Purdy threw 0 touchdowns. The 49ers got it done on the ground. Jordan Mason was getting the ball in the end zone. Deebo Samuel was getting the ball in the end zone. And then Jake Moody was kicking a lot of field goals, 6 to be exact. So 2 touchdowns, 6 field goals is how the 49ers did it. Sam Darnold had a lot more success through the air. He threw for 2 touchdowns in this game. And so right now, Brock Purdy looking to get that first touchdown, even though he was efficient. These were your 2 most efficient quarterbacks in week 1. Brock Purdy was number 1 ranked, and Sam Darnold was number 2 ranked right behind him. Probably part of the reason he was is because of the interception. And that's right, Brock Purdy had 0 interceptions. Sam Darnold gets 1 interception. But still, 2-to-1 ratio is what you're looking for. Touchdown to interception. Sam Darnold holding that down right now. Of course, the 49ers want to make sure Sam Darnold isn't able to keep that going. They would love it to be more turnovers. But Darnold was effective and efficient in his week 1 matchup. Now, sacks. Brock Purdy was sacked twice, while Sam Darnold was sacked once. So neither one of these guys gets sacked a whole bunch. Darnold in the past has, but he has the athleticism to get outside the pocket, to stretch things, and the intelligence to be able to know when to get rid of the football. So if the 49ers can put pressure on Sam Darnold, that's when they're going to have an opportunity for him to make mistakes. If they can't, and that Minnesota Vikings offensive line can play good against the 49ers defensive front, then Sam Darnold's going to feel comfortable, and that's when he can be effective. And that's when you have to worry about Justin Jefferson having more time. So that's going to be one of the keys in this game. Minnesota Vikings offensive line versus the 49ers pass rush. Keeping Sam Darnold comfortable is a key for the Vikings. For the 49ers, it's make him uncomfortable, make him rush, make him come off what he wants to do. Also, something else to watch, how often is Sam Darnold able to go to read 1? That's going to be one of the keys in this as well. And then when you look at the rating, quarterback rating, Brock Purdy at 89.9, very respectable. But Sam Darnold up there in last year's Brock Purdy land, 113.2. Sam Darnold just played very, very good in week 1 versus the Giants. Now, can he stack it? Can he keep it going? That's going to be the question. We do know the 49ers defense is better than the Giants defense, but the Vikings are a better offense than the Jets that we saw last week. They were just way more efficient and more effective. So it's going to be a fun matchup, that is for sure. Now let's look at the offensive DVOA. The Vikings are 9th, and so the 49ers are a little bit better as far as offensive DVOA at 6th. Efficiency, running the football effectively, definitely helps the 49ers as far as DVOA. So 49ers played a really tough defense as well. So that's one thing they're definitely taking into account when it comes to DVOA, how good the Jets defense is projected to be over how good the Giants defense is. So that plays into account when it comes to DVOA. Now let's look at one of the most important stats that I always love looking at, and that is third down conversion percentage and conversion rate. It's very important statistic in how you win football games. If you convert on third down, you usually win. Now that's not always the case, and we'll talk about that and why in just a second. But 49ers have been really effective. Last year, they finished the season getting third down conversions at a 47% rate. Usually what that means is you've done a very good job of staying ahead of the sticks and are forced to have third and shorts. Those are more convertible. Those are more manageable. 49ers have done a really good job because of the run game and the effective passing game to have third and shorts that they can convert. You look over at the Vikings, and it was a struggle against the Giants. Even though they put up points and they handled business against the Giants, a 30% conversion rate on third down, not great. Now, a lot of times they stayed ahead of the sticks, didn't have to worry about it, but still, they want this number up. This is kind of the low point of conversion rate for an offense as far as converting on third down. They need this to get up closer to 40 to 45% to be a really effective offense. If not, it's going to catch up with you. And of course, every defense is trying to force you to third and long so that way they can keep you from getting conversions. 49ers, very effective on third down. Vikings, not so much. Let's see how that plays into this game of the 49ers versus the Vikings. Now, let's look at the third down defensive percentage allowed, and look at the 49ers at 60%. Not great. Not ideal. But they were able to get off the field. They did force turnovers. That helps. But also, a lot of the third down conversions came on one drive. It was Aaron Rodgers consistently being able to get the ball to Garrett Wilson, and it was like third down conversion, third down conversion, third down conversion, all the way down the field. And I think that boosted up the numbers a little bit. But 49ers, this has been one of their problems, and part of the reason they brought in Brandon Staley to help Nick Sorensen is they need to get third down effectiveness a lot better. They need to get off the field on third down. Last year under Steve Wilkes, the teams were able to convert on over 40%. It was around 41% of the third downs they were able to convert. That's not where you want it to be. You want it to be closer to 35%. Brandon Staley, when he was with the Rams in 2020, 35%. Last year with the Chargers, even though they had a bad record and overall were ineffective for the most part, a 38%. That's pretty good. So that's where the 49ers are trying to work, get that number down and be better on third down, and forcing third and longs helps you with that. You look at the Vikings, they were very effective on third down, preventing the Giants from getting first downs. 38% is a nice number. Now, it was closer to 39, but still, 38% is really, really good for the Vikings, and that just proves that they can get off the field. And they have a really good and talented defensive coordinator in Brian Flores with some of the most unique and exotic looks you're going to see from blitz packages and personnel looks. So the 49ers are going to have everything they can handle. But third down, if you get to third and long, it's going to be tough to beat Brian Flores' defense. You need to stay ahead of the sticks. It needs to be 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, where a opportunity for Brian Flores to come at you with a zero look. He can come with zero coverage and come at you with a blitz, and you have to get rid of the football quickly. You need to be able to find your hot receiver, and they need to be able to get the ball out quick. 3 or 4 yards, you might get it. 9 or 10 yards, he comes after you. You don't have time to go through your reads, and all of a sudden they're off the field. So you have to stay out of 3rd and longs. Those will make it very difficult for you if you don't. But overall, Vikings very effective on third down. 49ers not so much last week, but I think it was skewed a little bit by one drive. Just for context, but they've got to be better. They need to get this number for sure under 40%. And let's see how they do against the Vikings, who were only 30% last week conversions on the offensive side of the ball. So let's talk about points allowed. The Vikings played really good against the Giants offense. They only gave up 6 points in the entire game. Now, the 49ers gave up 19, including the last drive to Tyrod Taylor. And, depending on how you look at it, you can count it or not. I think the 49ers were looking at their 2-minute offense, our 2-minute defense. I think they were working through some things. But let's say they gave up 19 points. They want to get this number down. Last year, they gave up a little over 16, so not a bad number for week 1. But, one of them was a garbage time touchdown. 49ers got to keep the Vikings scoring down. They had 28 last week. Can you keep them around 16, 17? Gives you a better chance to win. And so both these teams showed that they can keep the opposing team out of the end zone and off the scoreboard. And right now, the Vikings are the ones who are dominating, only allowing 6 points. That's really fantastic. Warriors scored 32. So we'll see kind of where the numbers lie at the end of this game. But it gives you a clear picture that both of these teams like to hold the opposing team out of the end zone, and they've done a really good job. So yards allowed, Vikings only gave up 240 yards to the Giants. The San Francisco 49ers gave up 266, both of them under 300. Now, a really good day is 250 and under. You see the Vikings, really good day. 49ers, just 16 yards over that. We talked about the garbage time touchdown drive. So both of these teams, I think, effectively could have kept their team respectively under 250. Vikings did it. 49ers just over. And so that's really good team defense. Both of these defense playing really well. Now let's look at pass yards. 49ers gave up 198 yards through the air. 168 of those were to Aaron Rodgers. And other than that last drive, they got a lot of yards. But holding a team under 200, very effective pass defense. You look at the Vikings, same thing. Only 166 yards to Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. And they've got some new bodies out there, including Stephon Gilmore at cornerback. So it's going to be a fun matchup. Both of these defenses have really talented players on the back end, cornerbacks and safeties. So it's going to be tough sledding between the pressure the front puts on and then the back end being able to cover the way they do. It's going to be cool to see, who can bother the quarterback, and then which quarterback makes a mistake could be really huge in this game. Both defensive fronts played fantastic. 49ers only gave up 68 yards to Breece Hall and the New York Jets rushing attack. That was phenomenal. They played really well. Run fits, doing a good job. That was a question mark coming out of last season. How well would the 49ers adjust to stopping the run? They exceeded expectations early on. Malik Collins, Devon Hargrave did a really good job on the inside. Bosa and Leonard Floyd set the edge. And then you had really good linebacker play from Devondre Campbell and Fred Warner. And they did a great job. So it was a team concept defense for the 49ers. They looked good. And Vikings, same thing. Devin Singletary was just never able to get going. They were making tackles for loss. Vikings defense, as far as rush defense, was no joke. And this is kind of one of those 49ers rush offense versus the Vikings rush defense. This is going to be a real fun thing to see who can get the advantage. Schematically, it's going to come down to that. But, I mean, you've got two really good run defenses and two really good run offenses. Something's got to give. So let's look at the defensive DVOA. You can see how good the Vikings were last week, playing so well that they got a 4th rank on DVOA. That is fantastic. 49ers, not bad at 8th. So you can see you got a good offense, good defense for the Vikings. That's why they get a number 2 overall in DVOA. When you're playing this efficient, that's how you're going to win. So the efficiency, they were through the roof. In fact, they're ranked higher than the 49ers. So, I mean, they're doing things right. Now, let's look at turnovers. Giveaways is always big. And the 49ers didn't turn over the football at all last week. Made sure they took care of the football. In fact, Brock Purdy had a near interception. There was one throw that got away from him that he shouldn't have thrown up the seam to Eric Saubert. Other than that, there wasn't really anything close. 49ers did a good job taking care of the football. Vikings, on the other hand, had a couple of turnovers, including a Sam Darnold interception. So we know that they got to be better at not turning over the football as far as giveaways. For the 49ers, this is one thing that they do well. They create turnovers, and they capitalize on them. They caused a fumble. Fred Warner knocked the ball out of Breece Hall's hands with a huge punch. And then you had De'Amar Lenore playing Garrett Wilson, knocking the ball away to Demetrius Flanagan fouls, making the interception. So they're finding ways to get the football. You're not good on 3rd down? Well, don't even make it to 3rd down. Just get a turnover. Sudden change to help your football team. So Vikings got to make sure they take care of the football well. 49ers got to continue to take care of the football. Don't turn it over. You turn it over against good teams, and it's going to really hurt you. Now let's look at takeaways. San Francisco 49ers, did a very good job in this game with the 2 takeaways. I talked about what they were. The Minnesota Vikings had 2 takeaways as well. And I talked about Van Ginkel with the interception, return for a touchdown. They also had a fumble recovery as well. So both these teams did it the same way, interception and fumble recovery. The only difference is Vikings got a pick 6, so that was huge for them. But both teams created turnovers, and ultimately that's what you're trying to do, because if you can win the turnover battle and you can win 3rd down efficiency, you have a really good chance to win every single game you're in. So when you look at turnover differential, the 49ers are +2, caused 2 turnovers, had none themselves, +2. Vikings turned the ball over twice and had 2 turnovers. So, or got 2 turnovers, 2 giveaways, 2 takeaways. So it evened out. So they're at 0. If you play at 0, you have a good chance to win. If you lose the turnover battle, you could potentially lose. So turnovers are going to be huge in this game. And both teams, I've showed the capabilities to create turnovers. And you know what I just thought? I had the Vikings with 1 fumble, but I believe Harrison Smith actually had the 2nd interception. So my apologies for that. I'm thinking of the wrong game. I've watched a lot of games, but yeah, it was 2 interceptions for the Vikings, and he did a good job. It was not a great throw from Daniel Jones, but Harrison Smith doing Harrison Smith things. Now, when you look at special teams and the DVOA, 49ers, this is one of the best games that they've had special teams-wise in a long time, and they rank 6th in the NFL. And part of it, Jake Moody hit 6 field goals. The other part, they didn't really get burned by the dynamic kickoff. Kicked a lot of touchbacks when they did kick it into the landing zone. They made the tackles before too much yards was given up. And in fact, it benefited them a couple times as far as field position. You look at the Vikings, it wasn't a strength. Of all the things they did well, offensive and defensively, very effective. Special teams, that's one of the things that they've got to pick up. And complementary football, all 3 phases playing together, offense, defense, special teams, is huge. So the Vikings got to pick it up a little bit. But if the 49ers can consistently play better on special teams, they can start finding advantages in some of these matchups that they're going to have. And this could definitely be one of those, is an opportunity to go in there and find an advantage on special teams and maybe make some plays, because the 49ers have been more than willing to put Deebo Samuel back there to return kicks. believe the Vikings will just kick it out of the end zone, not allow Debo to do anything through the kickoff return. And I think that's always going to be something that's huge. So this is the game kind of by the numbers, just giving you an idea of 49ers versus Vikings, how they did in their week 1 matchups against the 2 New York teams. And of course, things are going to change. Both of these teams are going to come out with some cool game plans. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to be talking about all that this week. If you come by the channel, I'm going to talk about the key matchups on offense and defense. Check that episode out. Of course, my game preview show, I go through key matchups, break it down a little bit further, get into some other key details of the game, go through wow, that's bold predictions, and then pick the winner of the football game as well. And if you like Madden, check out the Madden simulation. That's always a lot of fun as well. So cool, a lot of content. You can join me after the game for the live reaction show. And so just come through and check it out. Let me know that you're here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I always appreciate that. Of course, it's 49ers Cutback on Believe. And this episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.